The binary suns of Ashfin hung low on the horizon, painting the cracked earth in shades of burnt orange and deep crimson. Naya's thin arms trembled as she hauled the water container up the steep ravine path, her violet skin slick with perspiration that evaporated almost instantly in the dry heat. At 7 years old, she weighed barely 40 pounds, but the container held nearly 20 half her body weight in precious liquid. She paused to rest, setting the battered metal drum carefully on a flat rock. Her silver eyes scanned the landscape with the wariness of someone far older, checking for the telltale shimmer of sand scorpions or the twisted shadows that meant thornwolves were prowling. The walk to the underground spring took 2 hours each way, and she made it every single day without fail. Her mother needed the water. Needed it to drink, needed it to keep the fever down, needed it to survive. Naya picked up the container again, her small hands gripping the worn handles. Just a little further. Just like yesterday. Just like tomorrow would be. She didn't know she was being watched. Rook Tavish adjusted the zoom on his optical enhancer, keeping the small alien child centered in his view. 3 days he'd been observing this routine, and each time he felt the same uncomfortable twist in his gut. The kid couldn't be more than a toddler by human standards. Yet she navigated this hellscape like a seasoned survivor got. He was camped in the rocks about a quarter-mile from what he'd identified as her dwelling, a pitiful structure built into a collapsed lava tube, barely visible unless you knew what to look for. Rook knew what to look for. Tracking was his trade, had been for 15 years since he left Earth's colony network and struck out as an independent contractor. The work paid well. Mostly it meant finding people who didn't want to be found, delivering packages to places government transports wouldn't go, occasionally doing the kind of wet work that required someone with no official ties to any planetary authority. Rook didn't lose sleep over it. Everyone made their choices in this life, and his kept him fed and free. But watching a kid haul water through scorpion-infested canyons to care for someone sick, that made him lose sleep. His ship, the Wandering Star, sat hidden in a nearby cave system, damaged but functional. He'd been on a supply run to the outer territories when the nav computer glitched, dropping him out of faster-than-light travel, too close to Ashfin's gravity well. The emergency landing had cracked the port stabilizer and fried half his long-range communication array. Repairs would take a week, maybe 2 if he couldn't fabricate the parts he needed. He'd expected the moon to be completely abandoned. The colony here had failed 20 years back when the mining operations dried up and corporate backing vanished overnight. According to the registry, Ashfin was classified as uninhabited, unsafe, and not worth reclaiming. Yet here was this kid, making her daily death march for water. Rook watched as Naya stopped again, this time to avoid a nest of sand scorpions by throwing stones to rile them up and circling wide. Smart. Too smart. No child should have to be that smart just to survive. He packed up his observation gear and made his way back to his camp, where his supplies were laid out in organized rows. Medical kit, rations, water purification tablets, ammunition, repair tools. Everything a man needed to survive alone on the edge of nowhere. His eyes lingered on the medical kit. Standard issue, military surplus, bought off a quartermaster who needed gambling money more than he needed to follow regulations. Inside were broad-spectrum antibiotics, fever reducers, pain management dermals, diagnostic scanners. Stuff that could probably help whatever was ailing the kid's guardian. "Not your problem, Tavish," he muttered to himself, reaching for a ration bar instead. "You help every stray you find. You'll die broke and stupid." He'd told himself that for 3 days now. It wasn't taking. The truth was, Rook had spent too many years doing things he wasn't proud of. Things that paid the bills but left him feeling hollow. There was a reason he worked alone now, avoiding crews and partnerships. Fewer complications. Fewer chances to get attached. Fewer people to disappoint when he inevitably prioritized his own survival. But this was different. This was just a sick person and a kid who needed help. No moral complexity, no shades of gray. Just basic human decency, assuming that still meant anything out here in the black. He watched the suns dip lower, knowing the child would be making the return trip tomorrow morning. Same time, same route, same desperate determination. Rook made his decision. The next morning, Naya woke before dawn, as she always did. Her mother, Mira, lay on the sleeping pallet, her breathing raspy and uneven. The illness had come on 2 months ago, starting as a simple cough that progressively worsened. Now Myra could barely stand for more than a few minutes. Her once vibrant violet skin faded to a sickly lavender, her body burning with fever that never quite broke. "I'm going for water, Mama," Naya whispered, brushing her fingers across her mother's forehead. Hot. Always so hot. Mira's eyes fluttered open. The same silver color as her daughter's, but dimmed with sickness. "Be careful, little star," she managed. "Watch for, I know, Mama, scorpions, thornwolves, the loose rocks at the third bend." "I know." Naya smiled with a confidence she didn't feel. "I'll be back soon." The journey to the spring passed, as it always did, cautious, exhausting, lonely. Naya had memorized every dangerous spot, every creature's territory, every shortcut and safe zone. The underground spring was her lifeline, a miracle of geology that provided clean water when everything else on this moon was toxic or dry. She filled her container, rested for a few minutes in the cool darkness of the cave, then began the return journey. The suns were fully up now, beating down with merciless intensity. Sweat ran down her back, stinging where the container's straps had rubbed her skin raw. Halfway home, Naya saw him. A human man sat on a boulder directly in her path, his posture relaxed, but his eyes alert. He wore practical clothing gray trousers, a sand-colored shirt, a jacket despite the heat. His face was weathered, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. Naya froze, her heart hammering. Humans were dangerous. Mama had told her stories about the humans who'd come to their settlement, who'd demanded things, who'd hurt people when they didn't get what they wanted. Stay away from humans, Mama always said. They take what they want, but this human wasn't moving toward her. He just sat there, hands visible, empty. "Hey there," he called out, his voice carrying easily across the distance. "Name's Rook. I've been watching you make this walk. Thought maybe you could use some help." Naya's fingers tightened on the container handles. "Go away. Can't do that." Rook slid off the boulder, but stayed where he was. "See, I've got medicine in my camp. Real medicine, the kind that fights infections and brings down fevers. Bet whoever you're caring for could use that." How did he know? Naya felt panic rising. Had he been spying? Was he going to hurt Mama? "We don't need anything from you," she said, trying to sound brave. "Leave us alone." Rook studied her for a long moment, and Naya saw something flicker across his face. Sadness, maybe. Or guilt. "Tell you what," he said finally. "I'm going to leave a medical kit right here on this rock. Everything's inside: antibiotics, scanner, instructions, and standard. You don't want my help directly. That's fine. But take the kit. Use it. If it doesn't help, you never have to see me again." He pulled a white case from his jacket, placed it carefully on the boulder, then backed away with his hands raised. "The container's coded to your biometrics now," he added. "Only you can open it. No tricks, no traps. Just medicine that might save a life." Before Naya could respond, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the maze of rocks and gullies, as if he'd never been there at all. I stood frozen for a full minute, staring at the white case. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to ignore it, to protect her mother by avoiding anything the human offered. But Mama was dying. Naya knew it, even if she couldn't bring herself to think the word. Every day Mama got weaker, the fever burned hotter, the breathing got more labored. What if the medicine really could help? Slowly, carefully, Naya approached the boulder. The white case sat there innocently, its surface clean and unmarked. She reached out with one trembling hand and touched it. The case beeped softly, lights flickering across its surface, then clicked open. Inside was everything the human had promised, and more. Naya carried both the water container and the medical kit back to the dwelling, her mind racing with fear and desperate hope. The kit felt heavier than it should, weighted with possibility and danger in equal measure. What if it was poisoned? What if the human was lying? But what if it could actually save Mama? She found Mira where she'd left her, barely conscious, her breathing shallow and wet. The sound terrified Naya more than the scorpions or thornwolves ever had. "Mama," Naya whispered, setting down the water and kneeling beside the pallet. "Mama, wake up, please." Myra's silver eyes opened slowly, struggling to focus. "You single quotes read ... back. Good girl. A human gave me medicine." The words tumbled out in a rush. "He said it could help with fever and infections. He said there are instructions. Mama, can we?" Even through the fog of illness, Myra's expression sharpened with alarm. "A human? Here?" "Naya, where? He's gone. He left the kit and walked away. He didn't try to follow me or hurt me. He just left it." Naya opened the case, revealing the neatly organized contents. "Look, there's a scanning device, like the ones you used to use." Myra struggled to sit up, her arms shaking with the effort. Naya helped support her, arranging cushions behind her back. Together, they examined the kit's contents. Everything was labeled in standard, the common trade language used across settled space. Diagnostic scanner, antibiotic injectors, fever reducers, nutrient supplements, even wound care supplies. "This is military grade," Mira murmured, running her fingers over the scanner. "Expensive. Why would a human just give this away? He said he'd been watching me fetch water. He said he wanted to help." Myra's laugh turned into a coughing fit that left her gasping. When she recovered, her eyes were wet. "Humans don't just help, little star. There's always a price. But what if there isn't this time?" Naya pleaded. "What if he really does just want to help? Mama, you're getting worse. Every day you're worse. What if this medicine could—" "Naya, I can't lose you." The words burst out, along with the tears Naya had been holding back for weeks. "I can't do this alone. I'm trying to be brave like you taught me, but I'm scared, Mama. I'm so scared." Myra pulled her daughter close, her own tears falling into Naya's silver hair. They held each other while the suns climbed higher outside, while the heat built in their small dwelling, while the truth neither wanted to speak hung between them. Finally, Myra pulled back and wiped Naya's face with gentle fingers. "Show me how to use the scanner." It took them an hour to figure out the device, working through the instructions together. When Myra finally held the scanner against her chest, it beeped and displayed readings on its small screen. Most of the information meant nothing to them. But one thing was clear: severe bacterial infection. Advanced stage. The recommended treatment blinked at the bottom of the display. Broad-spectrum antibiotics. Immediate administration. "It's here," Naya said, finding the injector labeled with the same medication code. "But Mama, I don't know how to." "I do." Mira took the injector with trembling hands. "I worked in the settlement clinic before everything. I know how these work." She pressed the injector against her arm and activated it. There was a soft hiss, and she winced. "There." Now we wait and see if your human was telling the truth or if he's poisoned me. Don't say that. Mira managed a weak smile. Someone has to teach you dark humor, little star. Rook returned to his camp and tried to focus on ship repairs. The port stabilizer needed complete recalibration, and he'd managed to salvage some components from an old mining drone he'd found half buried in the sand. The work was precise, demanding, exactly the kind of thing that usually let him lose himself for hours. Today, he couldn't concentrate. His mind kept drifting back to the small alien girl with silver eyes, to the way she'd looked at him with such fear and mistrust. He didn't blame her. Humans had a terrible reputation in the outer territories, earned through decades of exploitation and violence. He wondered if she'd even taken the kit. Maybe she'd left it on the rock, deciding that dying from known illness was better than risking unknown human treachery. Should have just minded your own business, he told himself, adjusting a power coupling that didn't need adjusting. She's not your responsibility. But his hands were restless, his usual calm focus completely shattered. By midday, he gave up on repairs and decided to check his perimeter sensors. That was responsible, professional behavior. Had nothing to do with the fact that one of those sensors had a site lying to the kid's dwelling. The sensor showed no movement around the shelter. Either they were inside or ... no. He wouldn't think about the alternatives. Rook was debating whether to do another supply inventory, his third this week, when he heard it. A small voice, young and frightened, calling from outside his cave. Human? Rook, are you there? He grabbed his sidearm out of pure instinct, then forced himself to holster it again. Moving to the cave entrance, he found Naya standing about 20 feet away, her small frame tense and ready to bolt. I'm here, Rook said, keeping his voice calm. What's wrong? Is your mother? She used the medicine. The injection one. It's been 6 hours, and now she's sleeping. But I can't wake her up, and I don't know if that's supposed to happen, or if... The words tumbled out in a panicked rush. Rook held up his hands in a calming gesture. That's normal. The antibiotics make people tired because the body uses energy to fight the infection. Sleep is good. It means she's healing. Naya's rigid posture softened slightly. You're sure? I'm sure. The scanner would have alerted you if something was wrong. Did it make any alarm sounds? No, it just shows numbers and graphs. I don't understand most of them. That's okay. The important thing is no alarms. Rook paused, then added carefully, I could come look at the readings if you want. Make sure everything's progressing like it should. Naya's silver eyes narrowed with suspicion, but behind it, Rook could see the desperation. She was just a kid, trying to care for her sick mother with no help, no support, no safety net. You can come, she said finally, but I have a knife, and if you try to hurt us, I'll use it. Fair enough. Rook gathered his medical kit, a larger, more comprehensive version of the one he'd given them, and followed Naya's small form through the canyon paths. The dwelling was worse than he'd imagined from a distance. The collapsed lava tube provided shelter from the suns and wind, but the interior was barely 10 feet across, with a low ceiling that forced Rook to hunch. They'd done their best with salvaged materials. Sheets of corrugated metal formed one wall, worn fabric hung as curtains. A few crates served as furniture, but it was desperately poor. Myra lay on a pallet of threadbare blankets, her violet skin gleaming with fever sweat. But her breathing was easier than it must have been before. No longer that terrible wet rasp that signaled fluid in the lungs. Rook knelt beside her. Noting the way, Naya positioned herself between him and her mother, knife in hand. He moved slowly, deliberately, showing each action before he performed it. I'm just going to check her vitals, he explained, pulling out his scanner. Temperature, heart rate, oxygen levels. Won't hurt, won't wake her. The readings confirmed what he'd hoped. The infection was responding to treatment. Myra's fever had dropped 2 degrees. Her breathing was clearer, and the inflammation markers were beginning to decrease. "She's doing well," Rook said, genuine relief in his voice. "Really well. The antibiotics are working. She'll need another dose in 12 hours, then twice a day for the next week. By then, she should be mostly recovered." Naya's knife lowered slightly. "She's going to be okay?" "Yeah, kid. She's going to be okay." The tears that filled Naya's eyes broke something in Rook's chest. She was so young, carrying so much weight, and the simple relief of good news had cracked her brave facade. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't think. I was so scared that ... I know." Rook wanted to offer comfort, to pat her shoulder or ruffle her hair the way he'd seen other adults do with distressed children. But he kept his distance, respecting the careful boundaries she'd established. "You did good, Naya, taking care of her by yourself, making the hard choice to accept help from a stranger. That took real courage." "You know my name," Naya said, suddenly wary again. "Heard your mother say it when I was observing. Sorry for the spying. I needed to make sure approaching you wouldn't make things worse." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Naya asked, "Why are you here?" "On Ashvin, I mean. This place is supposed to be abandoned. Ship trouble. My nav computer glitched and dropped me here for emergency repairs. Should have everything fixed in another week or so. And then you'll leave." It wasn't a question, but Rook answered anyway. "Yeah, then I'll leave." Naya nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. "Before you go, can you teach me how to use all the things in the medical kit, so I can take care of Mama if she gets sick again?" The question caught Rook off guard. He'd expected suspicion, maybe gratitude, but not this practical forward thinking. "You planning on staying here after I'm gone? Where else would we go?" "Kid, this place is a death trap. No infrastructure, no support systems, barely any water. Why not come with me when I leave? I can drop you at a colony station, somewhere with real medical facilities, and no." The knife came back up, Naya's whole body tensing. "We can't. We can't go to stations or colonies or anywhere humans might report us. We have to stay hidden." Rook's instincts, honed by years of tracking and survival, went on alert. Hidden from what? From them. The ones who hurt us. The ones who'll hurt us again if they find us. Before Rook could press for details, Mayra stirred on the pallet, her eyes fluttering open. It took her a moment to focus, but when she saw Rook kneeling beside her daughter, something fierce and protective flared in her gaze. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice hoarse but strong. "Get away from my daughter." Rook raised his hands and backed away immediately. "My name's Rook Tavish. I gave Naya the medical kit. I'm just checking to make sure the treatment's working." Myra struggled to sit up, and Naya rushed to help her, shooting Rook a warning glance. Mother and daughter conferred in whispers, Naya explaining what had happened, showing her mother the scanner readings. Finally, Myra looked at Rook with measuring eyes. "You're a mercenary. I can see it in how you move, how you assess everything. What's your price for this help?" "No price. Everyone has a price. Not for this." Rook met her gaze steadily. "Sometimes people just need help, and I'm in a position to provide it. That's all." Myra studied him for a long moment, and Rook had the unsettling feeling that she was seeing right through every defense he'd ever built. Her silver eyes were sharp, despite the illness, intelligent and wary. "You'll forgive me if I don't believe in altruistic humans," she said finally. "But Naya tells me you saved my life. For that, I offer gratitude, even if I don't trust your motives." "That's fair," Rook acknowledged. He stood, preparing to leave. "I'll come back tomorrow, to check your progress. In the meantime, make sure you know. Myra's voice was firm. Leave the instructions. We'll manage on our own. Mama, Naya protested. He could teach me. We'll manage, Mira repeated, her eyes never leaving Rook's face. The message was clear. Help accepted, but don't push your luck. Rook nodded, understanding the boundary being set. He left detailed instructions written on a data pad, explained one more time how to administer the next dose, and then made his exit dot as he walked back to his cave. Rook found himself bothered by the encounter in ways he couldn't quite articulate. Myra's fear, Naya's mention of hiding, the way they lived like fugitives on an abandoned moon. It all pointed to something bigger than simple bad luck. He should leave it alone. They'd made it clear they didn't want his involvement beyond the medicine. His ship would be ready soon, and he'd be gone. Back to his solitary life of morally ambiguous contracts and careful isolation. But as Rook settled into his cave that evening, watching the binary suns set over the desert, he knew he wouldn't leave it alone. Couldn't leave it alone, not anymore.